Well, joining me from the greater Bay Area is McLaughlin. He's the co-founder and COO of Brink.io, which helps startup businesses across the world. And I'll tell you what, just listening to Gu Yunfei's story, fascinating. Talk to me about the government plans. How are people there viewing these efforts?
I think everyone here is incredibly excited. I think we've been holding our breath for a few years because the promise is so massive to have 11 cities connected. Obviously, 10 of those are sort of behind that firewall, or 9 if you include Macau. And then you have Hong Kong, which is connected to the Western world, which I think all of us, at least the foreigners here that are bringing innovation, that are really excited about what's happening in South China, we want to see that integration take place. And I think right now, what we're seeing in the next, let's say, 6 to 9 months, is some of the big infrastructure projects that they've promised are finally going to come online, which for me, traveling between our offices in Hong Kong and Guangzhou, is actually one of the biggest challenges. So that's the kind of short-term thing we're excited about. The bridges, the railways are finally coming online, but the promise of these 11 cities in terms of what it represents in the whole planet, it very well could be the most innovative cluster of cities in the entire Earth.
Yeah, you know, the effort's amazing. It's really an effort to break down geographical boundaries with Guangzhou, Shenzhen, Hong Kong Express Rail Line. There's always the idea, and then there's the execution. Things look great on paper, but turning the idea into action can take a while. How long before the government can really see some results, the results they want, in fact? Any way to predict that?
I think it does take time. And I mean, ultimately speaking, I was just back in San Francisco where I lived for almost 10 years. And the same train line that they were starting in downtown San Francisco is still not completed 8 years later. And it goes maybe a mile and a half maximum. Whereas here you have one of the largest train systems, the largest bridges on Earth being created in a matter of 3 or 4 years. So I don't think you can say it's slow. I think it's actually at sort of a breakneck ultimate speed more than any other country on Earth. But in terms of the kind of ultimate promise, we are going to face the next challenge after the infrastructure comes online, which is going to be the cultural, sort of connectivity. It's going to be the integration of the different policies. Your person before me actually brought this up, saying when you have Hong Kong with its very Western culture, and you have all the other cities in China, how are we going to create those connections? How are we going to make that work? I mean, ultimately, the promise of these 11 cities is second to none. But I think maybe in the next 5 to 10 years, you're finally going to see the bodies moving, the talent, the kind of businesses starting. But not really sure we're going to see the ultimate promise for probably another 10, 15, 20 years. But knowing China, it'll definitely happen.
You say, how are you going to make it work? And I guess that really is the question. And as you say, it could take time, but what are some of the complications there? I mean, especially considering Hong Kong and Macau are both special administrative regions, does that complicate things as well?
Absolutely. We actually just had the number 7 in command, Han Jin, come down from Beijing just a couple of weeks ago to Shenzhen to essentially say to everyone, hey guys, let's start cooperating and stop competing with each other. It's very culturally normal here to have the cities competing for talent, competing for grants, for funding, to make sure that their cities do best. So there's that first kind of large cultural challenge. I don't think we've ever seen this before in China, more or less if they were all inside mainland China versus having these 2 special economic zones in Hong Kong and Macau. So I think that further complicates the issue. I think one of the big questions that I have as a foreigner living here 4.5 years now is how do we actually create an integrated system in culture and values and legal systems? Because when I go to our offices in Guangzhou, or I go to our factories in Shenzhen or Dongguan, business for me is quite normal. But for a local here in Hong Kong, I don't see many people, other than running across, doing some business and coming home, people that really want to move their lives and really are going to kind of cross that border. And I don't think that's necessarily going to be the way forever. But I think these are going to be fairly material challenges. But again, I never question China's ability to get it done. And I think Han Jin's presence here in Shenzhen just a couple of weeks ago, sort of letting everyone know, hey, it's time to put our differences aside. Let's move forward for the party, for the country. I think we'll see it happen faster now than before.
McLaughlin, thanks so much for your insights. Really appreciate it.